If you're just joining us, I'm speaking with EMF expert Dr. Magda Havas on Your Supernatural Life here on Green 960. For podcasts of this show, go to yoursupernaturallife.com. So tell us about some of the unsuspecting sources of EMFs in our homes, like our Wii games and our alarm systems or baby monitors. Those are those really having an impact in addition to let's say, the wireless routers we have on our computers?
That's right. Well, we have wireless routers, obviously, that are emitting microwave frequencies. So do a number of cordless phones. There's a special kind of phone called a DECT phone, D-E-C-T, and sometimes that's written on the base station of the phone. And these phones emit 24/7, even when you're not using them. So your exposure, if you happen to have one of these cordless phones in your home, is likely to be one of the highest exposures you're going to have in the home environment. It'll be higher than using your cell phone, and
Really?
in some cases, it's higher than even living near a cell phone antenna.
Really? So I was not aware of that. I thought, and it's not just because you're holding it up to your head. You're saying that while it's, let's say, sitting on your nightstand, for example.
That's right. You're being irradiated 24/7 with this particular technology. And so having one of these cordless phones in your bedroom is something that I actually advise people to get rid of their cordless phones and to go back to wired phones because of the constant radiation.
So in order to see if you have a DECT phone, you turn it upside down and it will be labeled as such?
Sometimes they're labeled, yes. And unfortunately, there's also a digital cordless phone that isn't labeled as a DECT phone. It's at a slightly different frequency, and that emits 24/7 as well. So to get a phone that doesn't emit is very, very difficult in North America right now, although Germany, where they originally designed these phones, are coming up with the next generation phone, which only functions like that when you're using it, which is what it should be in the first place. So eventually we'll be able to get them here, but we can't get them yet.
Interesting. Wow, well, that's very eye-opening. And what about these games that kids are playing and adults as well? The Wii. What?
Well, that's right. I haven't actually measured any Wii games, so I don't know the exact level of exposure. But any kind of wireless technology uses either microwave radiation, radio frequencies, or infrared radiation. And the Wii games are using radio frequencies. So once again, the more you use them, the more you're likely to be exposed. The other thing that I think is incredibly important, the younger you are, the more sensitive you are to this radiation. And in addition to the cordless DECT phones, there's also DECT baby monitors. And so you have an infant in a crib. You put the baby monitor a few feet away. The mother then, works around the house, has the other part of the monitor, attached to her belt or, on her body. And so she's irradiating her ovaries, and at the same time she's irradiating her child. The measurements that we've done with DECT baby monitors show that they're as high, if not higher, than the DECT phones in radiation.
Oh, my goodness. That's extraordinary. Now, are all baby monitors, well, not say all, but would you say the majority of baby monitors are DECT technology or not necessarily?
It really varies from place to place, but I think whenever you start thinking of using wireless technology next to your infant, you've got to be very careful because it's going to be using microwave radiation.
And what about like alarm systems in your home? Same thing?
Yes, same thing. If you have alarm systems, anything that's wireless, and we're going more and more towards wireless, so your levels of exposure in your own home can absolutely be astronomical, much higher than anything you might get from a nearby antenna.
How can we measure? I know when Camilla was on, she talked about there are certain meters. So what are you recommending that people do if they want to measure how they're being exposed?
Well, there's two routes that you can take. One is you can hire someone to come in and do measurements for you. And unfortunately, the number of qualified people is still quite limited when you think of the size of the United States. But there are people you can hire to come in. Building biologists will do this, so if you could find out the nearest building biologist to where you live, that's one way. The other way is to buy meters, and to measure microwave radiation, you need a certain meter. To measure dirty electricity, you need another meter. To measure electromagnetic fields, you need another meter. So eventually, if you buy all the meters, it's going to be quite costly. And some people don't feel very technically adept and, would prefer someone to just come in and do the measurements for you. But those are your two options. And a very good website to visit is www.lessemf.com, LESSEMF. They have a lot of meters, and they're very knowledgeable in how they work.
Okay. Now, when you say to hire somebody, you mentioned the building biologist. Anyone else? I mean, are there EMF specialists out there who can come into your home with meters? I mean, and where would people find these people?
Yes, they are. Unfortunately, I don't think they're necessarily listed in the yellow pages under EMF expert yet, but although I think that's going to happen. So the best way to find out is if you happen to know of anyone who's had their homes measured and, by word of mouth.
I see. Okay. Now, you work with diabetics and people with MS and tinnitus and chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. So tell us what you're discovering about these conditions and how they're being related to being electrically hypersensitive.
Right. Well, in addition to the wireless technology that we've just been talking about, there's something called dirty electricity, and these are high frequencies that flow along electrical wires, and they emanate into the room from those electrical wires. And we found that some diabetics who are also sensitive to this radiation, they will have a spike in their blood sugar if they're exposed. And so if you put them into an electromagnetically dirty environment with dirty electricity, their blood sugar will go up within a matter of 20 minutes quite substantially. And if you then simply move them to another room, or if you filter the room that they're in so you minimize the dirty power, then their blood sugar drops just as quickly within a matter of about 20 minutes. Yeah. And some people who for example, one of the women we worked with was a type 2 diabetic. She regulated her blood sugar by exercise and eating properly. And when her blood sugar was high, she would go for a walk. And that brought it down within 20 minutes very, very quickly to the levels that it should be. And sometimes when she didn't feel like walking outside, she would walk on her treadmill in her home. And treadmills produce dirty electricity. They have a high electromagnetic field. Mm-hmm. And whenever she did that, her blood sugar actually went up. And so we think this is actually a good diagnostic for doctors to use or for diabetics to use. If their blood sugar after 20 minutes of just steady walking goes up rather than down, then they're likely to be electromagnetically sensitive.
Oh, that's very interesting. Now it explains to me why I always feel so weird when I go into a gym. It's those fields. I think it's, I hate going on treadmills. I much prefer walking out in nature. So that's interesting.
That's right. A number of people are telling me that when they work out with electrical equipment like that, anything that's plugged in, that they actually feel worse. And I think if you feel worse after working out with such equipment, you're likely to be electrically sensitive, and it's best to avoid it because it's putting stress on your body.
Right. Now, there's an event coming up at the San Francisco Library. Are you going to be participating in that along with Camilla Reese?
I think there's two events. I'm participating in one of them, not both of them.
Okay. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about the date and what's going to be covered?
Okay. Well, we're going to be in San Francisco. I think the date is November 18th. And it's a Commonwealth Club meeting where we're going to have a panel discussion with experts from around the world who will be talking about some of the research that they've done and sharing their information on what people can do to actually protect themselves from electromagnetic radiation.
Fantastic. So if people want more information, they can go to your website or go to the Commonwealth Club. What's the best way?
I think the best way would be to go to Camilla Reese's website, which is electromagnetichealth.org, I think.
Okay. And then also she has the lessemf.com as well, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
Right.
And if people want to get hold of you, take a look at your website. Can you tell us that one more time?
Yes, it's www.magdahavis.com.
Okay. And is there anything that you'd like to just close with? We have a minute left. Anything that you want to just let people know to be aware of in terms of their daily life?
Okay. Well, if you have multiple sclerosis, your nerve system is already compromised, and so people with MS tend to be very sensitive to this. I think it's so important to protect children from Wi-Fi, from cell phone antennas, from dirty power. There's a study that was done showing an increased risk of cancers among teachers in rooms that had a lot of dirty electricity. I think unfortunately, we can't just rely on the federal government to protect us. We really have to take our health into our own hands, and we have to make sure that the environment we live in is electromagnetically clean, not just chemically clean, and free of bacteria and viruses. We really have to make sure that our electromagnetic environment and that we practice good electromagnetic hygiene.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for being here today, and your work is just so important, and people need to wake up and become aware of this other form of pollution in our lives.
Thank you very much, Beth.
Thanks.